Hello, this is Jon Miller, the creator of The Rest of Everest. I think I can safely say that this show is, without a doubt, the most in-depth look into the entire experience of what it takes to climb Everest, as well as some other peaks throughout the Himalayas. But all of the events in this series are shown in chronological order, so if you're new to the show, please go all the way back to episode 000 and watch everything in order. That's truly the best way to enjoy it. Thanks.
This is the Rest of Everest video podcast, an almost unabridged expedition experience. Episode 183, the Karakoram Highway.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Rest of Everest. I'm Jon Miller. So we are launching Season 6 today. I'm very excited. And joining me is the man who filmed everything that you're going to be seeing on Season 6. It's Brian Block. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks, John.
I'm really excited to bring you into the fold, into the Rest of Everest family. So we have a long journey ahead of us over the coming months. Getting to his climbs on Broad Peak and K2. You know, obviously, before you can climb these mountains, you have to get there. So we always start out at the beginning of any season with just the trip getting in towards the mountains. So the first few weeks of this season is going to be concerning the approach. And the approach is going to start off right now as we head up to Islamabad, Pakistan. And we join Brian in a cab. And so let's go ahead and do that. So here we go.
The first part of the documentary.
Yes. Islamabad. I love that area.
Traveling through downtown Islamabad. Had a few things we had to pick up.
You know, this was an interesting day, actually, because we were working with a new in-country liaison and guide service that takes care of all of our stuff. And so, you know, I'd said, and we'd worked with a guy previously, a whole different Karakoram Mountain Magic, which does great stuff, but we just decided to, and partly because I was on another joint trip, you know, with a different group, FTA, we were sent in and we were off to pick up our stuff, and of course, you know, they sent over a cab driver who spoke no English, and of course my my Balti or everything is not good enough to really get us where we needed to go. So we essentially spent about an hour and a half driving around in circles, you know, and pointing at things that he would periodically pull over at, and we would find people that spoke English and try and sort it out from there. But yeah, it was an interesting afternoon, and after about 3-4 hours of that, we actually walked around for the things closest to our hotel for about an hour and found the things we needed: SIM card, you know, chocolate, things like that you want to have on the mountain. And then eventually my friend Shujat, that's from a local village, had tracked me down. I told him I was coming to the country, and he found me and speaks perfect English and took us all around. But
all right, so here's who's this fellow in the black shirt here?
That's Rob Baker. He's an Australian that was an assistant guide with FTA Field Touring Alpine. We were there, and my best friend Fabrizio Zangrelli was leading a trip to go to Broad Peak K2, and that's Ben Kane. He's one of the assistant guides as well.
Oh, cool. Okay, so we might get him up there instead.
He did find some.
Yeah, he's got
Okay,
some.
good.
Oh, yeah. Was this Tony that got pissed off with you? Yeah, cool. No worries. You know, Chris is getting...
Here Ben is talking with Fabrizio right now, because Fabrizio was prior on a trip up in Nepal, and so he was moving a lot of gear and picked up a lot of the essentials, fixed line, all that kind of stuff in Kathmandu, and then was going to be migrating it down with a cargo shipment essentially to Skardu was the end goal, but getting to Skardu is the next obstacle in every K2 expedition, because you know, you can drive, which takes about 24 hours, or you can fly, which takes about 45 minutes, but they don't have, like, you know, ground radar and things of that nature. So, you know, he's getting all the details, and we're sorting out who is coming in when. And, you know, there's another assistant guide, Chris Simic, who was coming from Nepal as well, but on a different flight itinerary than Fabrizio. So making sure someone was at the airport to pick them up or find a way to get the gear, you know, that we needed that they didn't have, that we were going to pick up in country. You know, it becomes quite an organizational feat, really, as much as anything.
How big is the a permit on K2?
Amazingly, it's not terribly expensive. I'm trying to remember what it is per person,
Is it
but
10,
for the
10
less
climbers, or is it just a? or per person? It doesn't matter.
We had 9 climbers before, and it ended up they broke it down per person. I think they're pretty liberal about the policy, and it changes from season to season because the last 2 expeditions I've done into Pakistan, both, with K2 as part of the contingency, was that they had half-price things because the Ministry of Tourism basically cut the permit fees because they knew that there was this stigma about, is it safe? Is it, good idea to be traveling there? And, there was a big Taliban uprising that if you take the bus, there was this potential that you could get into trouble, but no one I know or have known has ever had any issues. And you see what's on the news, but the thing that we learned most, especially after my first trip there, is that especially the people you're dealing with, they live because of the tourism, and they are just like, I'm sure from Nepal, where it's very peaceful and friendly, but, over in Pakistan, it's like the people are just like we are, and if anything, they're more kind, more considerate, and because they're not hung up on many of the things we are, when you look at from the sense of a long expedition, seem trivial when you get away from them for a while.
Yeah, they're all down there waiting. That's right. John's stuff is coming up with ours. He just said for me to let you know. Yeah, cool, okay. Yeah, talk to you later, mate. Bye. Cool. It's all included.
Working out the details. Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, logistics.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, g'day, I'm Ben.
All right, well, we'll elaborate on that more.
He elaborates
later.
But.
And then we got the heavy lifter, computer guy.
I'm Rob, how you doing? Yeah.
Rob's
welcome.
become a great friend over the years, actually, since this was a 2010 trip. But we ended up working with another group that also had the same idea, and Benny there with the glasses, and Mike in the hat there. He's from South Africa. Benny's from Munich.
They've arrived in Gilgit. A good portion of the KKH behind us by
That's Lac Barida, famous Sherpa that just got Outside Magazine's Adventure of the Year. And
starting to actually see some peaks, which is nice. And now we're going to apparently go for tea, and then head on up to Skardu, hopefully by nightfall. It can take anywhere between 5 and 8 hours, and the road this year has been said to be less than ideal, so...
And you'll see a lot of this in the background, a lot of this rebar sticking up. There's a lot of process that never comes to fruition.
Yeah, taking a little off now.
Yeah.
We got the Sherpas.
But yeah, so at this point, we've flown. We could not get a flight directly to Skardu because the flights will get backed up significantly by days or even weeks, and especially on the way out.
Coolest shorts I've seen. Where did you acquire? They look like kind of like bullfighter shorts.
Yeah, this is Benny.
Where did you find these?
These?
Yeah.
And I'm from Munich, Bavaria,
Oh, really?
Good.
Heavy duty?
This is a must.
Yeah. I like them. I'll have to procure some at some point.
If you come to Oktoberfest,
And those were hand-me-downs from his grandfather, and they cost about $1,000 or more, to buy.
Nearly there.
Well, about to start driving.
Well, yeah. 5 to 8 hours, right?
Yeah, fuck that.
You're cracking it on.
6 to 10 hours.
6 to 10 hours. 1 to 11 hours.
I just got a 6 to 7 hours, which is
Is that what they said? Well, that's good. That's
getting
more
closer.
concise, and it's inside of the realm of what we were expecting.
Yeah.
Where are we right now? We're in Gilgit. We stopped for tea. Beautiful greenery. Let's go.
It's surprising too. You looked around, you saw the gravel and the broken rock and everything from them just cutting the streets in the area out of the side of the mountain, essentially. But then there's these incredibly green, well-groomed areas too, where we would religiously stop for tea. And
yeah, it looks really pleasant.
Yeah, it was one of these great little gardens to kind of go back and sit in. But of course, it's about 94 degrees and there was no shade, so we were like, that's great. Let's go get on the bus. So you spend a lot of time, when you do the full drive of 24 plus hours, basically of driving on the bus when you make the drive and, 45 minutes of flight. But they make it pretty comfortable for you. It's an interesting situation, to say the least, because invariably they will pick up people as they're driving along that they may or may not know and that are just headed somewhere else. And you're in this little private tour bus it's not really that private, but it's very cool because you feel like you're part of the situation. And sometimes, you'll talk to somebody and you'll overhear what they're saying, and they'll say, oh, well, yeah, that's his cousin. He's going somewhere. And so he's picking him up because he knew he was coming through. And so we'd stop and periodically get water, or somebody needed batteries or SD card, they recalled, before we got too far down the road where you might not be able to find it. But we spent quite a bit of time together, getting to know each other on the bus. And, it's one of those things where you can sit there and talk, and then eventually everybody just sits there quietly because there's just nothing more to say because you're just on the bus forever.
So I know. So you're very close with Fabrizio, who is not here yet at this point.
No.
But did you know these other guys?
No, everyone was new to me. I definitely hit it off right away with the Australian contingent. Ben and Rob are great guys and very down to earth, and a lot of good climbing experience, and we traded a lot of stories. But no, I was there, essentially to climb with Fabrizio, and he had the things to do that he had to do while we were there. So, oh yeah, he's getting a little workout in. I found that entertaining.
All right, so this is, I'm guessing this is the infamous KKH, the Karakoram Highway.
It is, and it is treacherous. This is the really good sections, and as you can see, it's not even 2 cars wide, really, at any point along the way. And there's a lot of, you'll see in upcoming video that there's a lot of blind corners where these guys are going minimum of 55, 60 kilometers. And this guy was much more considerate. There's 2 kinds of drivers, really. There's the ones that are getting paid by the trip, and so they just go as fast as is humanly possible, caution to the wind. And as they come up, like you see this blind corner coming up there on the left, as they're coming up on it, they just honk and keep going around, which, if another car honked coming the other way, you have a nice head-on collision. And we saw a residue of some of these things on occasion, and you see it drops off thousands of feet down to a rushing river. And you'd see carcasses of buses or things periodically along the way, and it'll go from perfectly paved for a couple hundred yards to rotted gravel. Yeah, there's a car jumping out of the way as this bus is coming through, but it's incredibly uncomfortable. And actually, talking to Fabrizio and other people, it's like it can be the most precarious and dangerous part of the trip in and of itself. So being able to cut out a large chunk of it by flying to Gilgit was huge for us on this trip. In 2007, driving back, I actually took a regular bus with all the people that, from Skardu that were headed back to Islamabad. And so, people were climbing out the door and climbing up on the roof when it was too hot to get air while we were going 70 kilometers an hour on this narrow road. And
see a waterfall in the distance there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the whole area is just beautiful, and it's entertaining, too, because I'd just be like, wow, this is being in the Rocky Mountains is great, but they kind of pale in comparison to the size and magnitude of what goes on in Karakoram. But
yeah, and you really can't capture that on video. That's something that we talk about in past seasons of the show, is that you just can't fully document the scale of these mountains. Yeah,
the scope and the magnitude is just amazing. It's until you, even when you zoom in on something and you see somebody way up on the side of a face and you go, oh, wow, that's a lot bigger than you would have guessed looking at it, because comparatively, and having climbed up, on Mount Logan, they'd talked about, it's just much bigger than you can imagine, but this was like a whole nother realm. So I think the coolest thing, was, some of the man-made structures out here. There's a lot of these suspension bridges and, tension bridges that they would put together, and you can see where it's
beautiful, really.
Yeah,
well constructed.
Work of art, really, is what it is. And of course, many of those are guarded by Pakistani military police, and it has strong urgings and threats, essentially, that you cannot shoot video, can't take pictures, can't do anything, because of, they want to protect that in case you are a enemy spy. And it's
You're
actually
planning to blow it up or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, getting all the beta on it so that you can blow it up.
It's really interesting, because I think more so that, you're not officially on any of these expeditions, you're not to have a GPS, because they don't want you to be able to lock in coordinates of things. And so much of this, you look around and it's it's very beautiful, and every so often you might see some terraced areas that have a bit of green, but it's literally just lots and lots of mountainous rock. And so I always find it a bit hilarious that they were like, oh, we don't want you to know where this is, or where this bridge is or where this point is, and it's like because someone else will come and take your rock.
Now, going up into Tibet, we often have to hide a lot of stuff. Do you have to do any of that here, like the GPS or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because they make you stop at a checkpoint along the way, and they have you get out and go through the bag that you're carrying, like your day bag that has your camera and your cell phone and all these things. And we had one guy that had the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, you can't have that," and took that away. And they had, and there was a couple of other things, but yeah, I mean, if you just, and literally we would just leave them in the Jeep on the way to Ascoli, and they don't check your major bags, they don't check any of the other stuff. So it's kind of a loosely enforced policy, but But here we're on the home stretch. This is actually some of the mountains that surround Skardu, which is the end goal of the commercial transportation, and then everything from there is by Jeep. And years ago, they used to hike from even prior to that.
So is Skardu a major city in the area, or is it like a county seat or something like that, or?
Well, that's all relative, I guess. But
yeah.
But as far as northern Pakistan, where we are, it's the last commercial city, I guess you could say. I mean, you can buy batteries, you can go to an ATM, you can get clothes washed. There's little hotels and things of that nature, and it's probably the last truly tourist aspect to it. Because I mean, here's a big area where there's just cricket. Tons of boys playing cricket, and it's just it's pretty all right. And this is I always buy a thick mattress for my base camp tent that I have brought in. But so now we're finally meeting up with Fabrizio there. He's the long hair hatted guy trying to organize the situation.
So was he just climbing in Nepal?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what he was on just prior to this. I think it was Manaslu.
Okay, so in Nepal the climbing season is in the spring, and for K2 and Broad Peak it's actually summer.
Yeah, my flight to get there was June 4th.
Okay.
Yeah. He's starting to drive now because now the liaison officer wants to come.
Oh.
So
By road.
Yeah. So now he has to say goodbye to family, maybe have dinner, perhaps shoe shopping.
So you got the
Oh, good.
Yeah, I got keys. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, cool. Well, here's half of our stuff.
Half, yeah. And
The
rest is
cargo
getting
just
on.
arrived.
Oh, really?
Yeah, over at ATP.
Oh, cool.
Will they bring that here, or will we go there to get it, or?
Where things are going, it gets shipped back to his long box.
Well, there we go.
Here we're discussing some of the challenges, and the first and foremost is that of our liaison officer. Because in Pakistan, you have to have a liaison officer.
Hey.
And in many cases, it's somebody who is looking for status, because if you've done a term as a liaison officer on a major expedition and they have success, then it kind of breeds down to them, I guess. But in most cases, the people come in and they have no camping experience, they have no desire to be there whatsoever. And so a lot of times they'll say, well, I'll tell you what, you pay me X amount of dollars and I'll disappear for, however long you're there, and then I'll meet you back here in Skardu when you're done.
And file the report.
Yeah, pretty much. And, it'd probably actually in some cases be easier in that capacity, but they're there to make sure that, you're not infringing upon anything. And, and even the liaison officer we had in 2007 was great. I constantly was trying to learn more of the local languages and figure out the customs and everything else. That's really important to me when I travel, is to try and get indoctrinated into the site and be stick out like a sore thumb. But this was the hotel that we stayed at a couple of days. We'd had about 4 days layover in Islamabad, waiting to get on the flight to get there and pull up some of the people and situate ourselves to start this aspect of the trip. It's always amazing, even after going to Everest and everything. It was a quick trip comparatively, and here, you can be 2-3 weeks in before you really even start the climbing. So.
Yeah, sweet. Let's go. They'll land up here, then.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too,
Looking
man.
good.
Okay, hey, we're on about day 8, I guess it is at this point for some of the guys. I think I'm on day 5. I've kind of lost track. Long flight getting over. Lots of sitting around waiting in Islamabad, and when you're still trying to communicate with home and ramp up last minute work stuff, it definitely creates a challenge in that you've got such a big time difference, and you're awake 2 times a day because you're not really on the sleep program yet and everything. So it's been interesting trying to keep up with the wife, trying to make sure everything's wrapped up at work. Had a major drop of the ball because I didn't follow up on a couple of emails that I sent letting people know I was going to be gone. So that was a bit stressful for part of it. But I know that my wife's got everything running, and she's got everything in capable hands and making things happen, and a great staff that works with and for me. So that's reassuring. But as far as the adventure so far, we have spent a couple of days in Islamabad. I got to spend some really good time with Shujat, who's a good friend of mine, who was part of my expedition in 2007 as the base camp organizer manager. And so we got to go out and have some great dinners and see some things, and hopefully you got to see some footage of that. We could not get a flight direct to Skardu, so instead we are now just arrived in Skardu as of last night, have been sorting gear, as you saw. The debauchery, that's the 4th time going through the gear, I think, at this point. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a challenge for sure. Because of my last experience and in, most of my Alaskan expeditions and everything else, it's been a situation where, get on the plane, get up there, good weather, fly in, start climbing, go, and get done very early. And it would be great to be home early, but only if it's successful. I'm not really interested in wrapping it up if it's not something that we see some success of some sort or another. And yes, it's hard to measure success. But yeah, so got finally up here after I think 4 days waiting in Islamabad. Took a flight to Gilgit, which is along the way of the Karakoram Highway, which as you probably saw from some of the footage, and I apologize to those of you that get motion sickness or might have seizures from some of the footage that I got, but that's what the ride is like, so it's very indicative of what that road is, and some of the exposure that you see and all the bumps and the stop and go, and probably about lost an arm a couple of times getting that footage with the closeness that the cars pass each other by. But yeah, so now we're finally here. We're in Skardu. The next objective is to move on to Ascoli. We'll go there by Jeep, probably tomorrow morning as the rest of the members arrive. And once we arrive there, we'll repack everything. Fabrizio and I and Ben are already starting today on repacking loads down to 25 kilos because that's the total that the porters will carry on your behalf. And so we're trying to figure out how many loads we're going to have with group gear, food, cooked tents, all this stuff. And it looks like it's going to be upwards of 150 porters. So there'll probably be some pretty cool footage coming from the Karakoram as people are coming up the glacier on the Baltoro for sure, because that's always beautiful. It's an amazing backdrop, but also very cool to see all the people that are filing their way up to base camp. So it sounds at this point that we're going to have a setup of base camp at Broad Peak because everyone on the team is on the Broad Peak permit, and then I think there are 6 of us on the K2 permit as well. So we'll go high and acclimatize, and I'd like to have a summit shot on Broad Peak if the weather works out, inshallah, as they say. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of sorting out the rest of the details. The last thing I'm really on par for is I could use a shave. As I've now assimilated into the culture long enough to get to where I need to be to feel completely safe. Not that I didn't, I was in very good hands in Islamabad, but I always like to, put the cards in my favor if I can. Stack the deck, if you will. And so in this instance, yeah, as usual, grew out the beard just to make my way through and try and stick out a little bit less, although I was hanging out with 2 blonde Australians in my time in Islamabad with Rob Baker and Ben, and so that definitely made it hard for me to be undercover unless, of course, I was their tour guide. But definitely excited to be in Skardu, excited to get things going. I actually woke up for the first time excited. I mean, there's been a couple of days of dread as I very much miss my wife and my new son, Alexander. And so I've been able to talk to them a lot, and I made the investment in sat phone minutes, so hopefully that will continue throughout the trip. And also Jonathan Miller over at the Rest of Everest was kind enough to loan me some of the equipment I needed in order to stay in contact with them, through the beacon and a little computer. So hopefully that will all work out, although I don't know that much about it. I like to think I'm fairly computer savvy, but I guess we'll just see. Yeah, so everything is in place as it should be, and things are going very well. The food is great. I have not been suffering any of the frightful stomach virus or bugs that usually strikes first couple days in country. and it has hit Ben pretty hard and Rob even harder. Got to share a room with him as he shivered all through the night, as it moved through his whole body, and was not doing too well. But they're on the bus. Chris and Rob Baker are on the bus up to Skardu, along with the liaison officer, which is necessary for any of these expeditions. You got to have one of those guys in tow, in order to make sure that you don't commit any infractions against their, Ministry of Tourism and their, military background of, protection of the area in the Karakoram. So try and honor that for sure. What else is there to tell? It's actually very much cooler here. It was about 40 degrees Celsius or 97 to 105, depending on what day, on the days we were in Islamabad, so it was quite warm. Not the Iowa humidity that I'm used to seeing, but definitely quite warm, But here it's nice and cool, and actually the reason I'm kind of hiding out in here without an amazing backdrop is that it's raining. So, that can be good, but it probably means snow in the mountains, and already we've heard that there's up to 2 meters of snow at Concordia, which is the last camp before we go into Broad Peak Base Camp. And so if there's that much snow there, then that means that there's probably a lot of snow on the mountain, which could be very good as long as it's had a chance to set up. Might make for travel over some of the areas that might have been exposed rock previously to be pretty safely passable and pretty easy. As it stands, I haven't been on Broad Peak before, so this will be new to me. I hear that you can get through it with basically a ice axe and a trekking pole. And so, I've brought in 2 BD trekking poles that have the sharp poke down there, the whippets. Excuse me. And those are great, and that might even be just what I use depending on the angle of the terrain, but from the pictures that I've seen, and it looks like it can vary a lot, it would be ideal to have more snow on it than less. So Stu at FTA had sent over some stuff, and Ben and the guys were commenting on how compared to last season when they were there, and that they would much prefer to have a lot more snow, from a heavy winter, and it sounds from all accounts that that's been the case. So hopefully that's what we'll experience. Things are good. Looking forward. I'm actually going to call in my first Gabcast, and I've been trying to blog some stuff. This is very unusual for me because I'm not usually into this side of it. I'm more about go, have no exposure, because then there's no expectations. And then when people say, what did you do this summer? If it worked out great, hey, good. If it didn't work out great, well, then, it's an experience and you came back from it. But I hate to get into the middle of that thing on the sponsored side of it, stuff that I tried before and, makes for questionable decisions. And now at this point in my life, and with a wife and a son, I'm trying to be more conscientious of all that. And so this is interesting to try and balance, and I may even find myself more so on the, videographer, details orienter of what's going on. So it'll be interesting. But that's about it for now. Hope things are well there and you guys are enjoying the podcast. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you'll find now that this was 3 years ago. Now that you've got a couple kids, it's nice to have all this documented.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun to watch. Because at the time it's like, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm trying to pull this together. I want to make, memories, because as much as I have memories of things, whenever you sit down with climbing partners or buddies, and you always hear all the other things that you forgot or something you didn't, remember witnessing.
We broke out all the team gear and set up all the tents that had been in Kathmandu in order to make sure that they were all dried out. It's kind of a cool view to look down the hallway and see a bunch of marmot tents all set up, drying out. It's a big hallway, as you can see. They could have a whole nother set of rooms on the other side, most likely, in this hotel, but instead we've got space to work. Ideal for us.
Yeah, these are all the things that were in Nepal that got migrated down, so I just set up everything, make sure they had all the right poles, all the right pieces, make sure everything's guyed out correctly, so make sure it's dried out too before we pack it back up again for what could be a couple of days of migrating.
And that was officially the largest hallway in any hotel, probably in northern Pakistan.
By far.
I still can't believe how big that was. Look at all those tents, and you could have set up three rows of tents next to each other.
Oh yeah, we were trying to be considerate because there was one other group that was staying in this particular part of the hotel, but you could have gone crazy with it.
That's great. Well, congratulations on your first episode of The Rest of Everest, Brian.
I'm excited to keep going with it.
And we will keep going. Next week, we're going to continue. So now we're off. We're going to be off the paved highway, if you want to call it paved. And we're gonna get into some Jeeps, and we're gonna go off road as we continue towards what is the drop off point for the actual approach trek. And so it's going to be pretty exciting next episode. Do a lot of off-roading in the dark. So how about that? It'll be a first for the show.
Yeah, it won't do it justice, that's for sure, because the fact I was shooting any video, that's probably the single most gripping part, especially when the drivers say, oh no.
Awesome. All right, well, I look forward to it. So we'll see all of you next week. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, John.
The Rest of Everest has been watched millions and millions of times all over the world since 2006, and it's all been free, but it's not free for me. If you're a fan, then let me know. You can like The Rest of Everest on Facebook, write a review on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, or even help me pay the bills with a financial donation. It doesn't take much, and quite literally, your donations make this show possible. They honestly pay for everything. You can make a one-time donation or set up a monthly contribution through my website. Help me out, and I'll give you a download of our film Everest: The Other Side, as well as some other goodies. Thanks as always to our announcer Marlon May from marlonmay.com, and to Wendy Wu for providing the show's theme song. Find her on iTunes or at wendywoo.com.
Thank you for watching The Rest of Everest. For more information about the show and upcoming expeditions, be sure to visit therestofeverest.com.